Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another Winged Unplugged. And today, as I was thinking about what we chat about, it is difficult not to talk about what's happened in the last 1 week in Afghanistan. I think that's on the minds of so many of us. We've seen heart wrenching, gut wrenching pictures of what's happening at the Kabul airport, where people are literally scrambling on planes and on the wings and on the tires, wherever they can to get out of the country. And there's this one image which I'm sure all of us have seen, of the video where the plane's taking off and there are people on it, and it makes you wonder how desperate a person might be to actually do something like that, knowing that if the plane doesn't stop, that might be the end of our lives. And there are people who have locked themselves in, can't come out. There are people who have helped other different countries as they were there, as interpreters, as translators, whose lives are at risk. And it made me wonder, how did we come to a situation like this? How are decisions made? And while at one level, I'm not sure whether any of us can impact these decisions that leaders or our leaders of the country make, what can we learn from this in our own lives, and what can we do? I'll start with first what we can do, because sometimes you can feel really helpless. I can, as to how do I impact a situation like this? I don't really have any power. And one of the things that I have been doing over the last few days is just sending prayers, wishes, and one might say that that's lame. But I do know that the subtle travels faster than the gross, and is far more powerful. So I'm hoping that any of the meditations, the breathings, the true prayers that we have will in some ways help and alleviate some of the suffering that people are going through. And then whatever we can do in our way to make a difference, even if it is to one life, that life is changed. So I think just keep your eyes and ears open about what you can do. And the second is, what do you learn from this? What could have been done differently? And so today's topic is all about decision making, and how do we make it and how do we execute it. Often when we think about decisions, and even this one, there's debate happening, different channels. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it the right thing to pull the troops out? Is it the wrong thing to pull the troops out? And we normally debate on the decision itself, right? Yes, no, black, white, should not. But what might be far more helpful for us as we learn lessons, and also as people who are making decisions in our lives, and as adults we need to make decisions all the time, is peel back. How are you making the decisions? Are you making a decision where your mind is already made up? Where in this case, President Biden, he had a point of view in 2009, and he has stayed with the same point of view even as he came into power. The information might have changed. The ground reality might have changed. New things have come in. Are you coming in already with your mind made up? Or are you open to new information coming in? Are you open to changing your mind? Often we talk about people who are fickle and change their minds constantly. And yes, I'm not saying we do that. But also being foolhardy and saying, this is the decision, I made it and I'm going to stick by it, makes absolutely no sense either. The world is changing. We're like a constant stream of water. And as we are flowing through and we see different things, it's important that we assimilate new information and make decisions based on new information. And so many times we say we're making rational decisions. Oh, we've looked at the numbers, we've looked at the decision, but are you really making a rational decision? Are you making an emotional decision? And we see that in our personal lives constantly. You're having a tough time with your boss, or you're not being appreciated, and you just want out. You want to get away. And you give yourself a million reasons, rational reasons, as to why you should get out. Or, I'm not growing, the pay might be better elsewhere, I'm tired of this thing. Just look at it. Are you truly making an emotional decision? Are you making a rational decision? And most of us make emotional decisions, and it's fine, but at least keep some rationality in mind as you make the decision. Is it something that you should be doing differently? Is it something that the surrounding needs to change? So that's number one. How are you making the decisions? Have you already made up your mind and are rationalizing? I'm sure you've seen people like this. I have a lot of people around. They'll come to me and say, hey, Ruchika, I'm thinking of doing this. And these are the 5 reasons we should do it, or whatever else. And I know their mind is already made up. All they want from me is to say, is a confirmation to say, yes, go do it, or I think you're right. Just a little bit more confidence, right? Because, as a friend, they're coming to me and they think I might have outsider's perspective, and they're like, are we doing that? Because if you're making an emotional decision and not keeping information, practicality, rationality in play, the chances of us regretting that decision is very high. The second thing, we often think about whether the decision is right or wrong. But in strategy, we used to say this all the time as a consultant, I would say this at work, that execution trumps strategy any day of the week and every day of the week. So let's assume, even for a nanosecond, for argument's sake, that the decision that President Biden took was the right one, to withdraw the troops. He doesn't want the troops to be there. It's been 20 years. He needs to do it. How are we executing against it? Was the execution thought through? Or it's like, we're so excited we made the decision and we just want to pull out. A lot of times, when we have a certain point of view, emotionally want to make a decision and we are not being able to, the moment we make a decision, we don't think about how we're going to execute the decision. We don't think of consequences of what happens when you pull the plug. You're just looking forward and cannot wait to pull the plug. And yes, we need to pull the plug, but how? What are the consequences going to be, even in our lives? Right? Again, going back to work, maybe. You decide you want to quit your job and you quit it, but you don't have a game plan as to what you're going to do after. And then you're like, for the next few months, you're really happy, excited, and then you don't really know what to do with your life, or you can't find another job. And similarly with relationships. You're so excited to say, yes, I want to get into a relationship because you've had 3 amazing dates and you want to start dating the person, not saying no. Again, just look at the nuance in this. But are you just so excited to jump in and say, I do, without really thinking, giving it time? How is this going to play out? Maybe a little bit of the execution is important. If you wanted to get the troops out, maybe we give it a year. Get all the people who need to get out of the country out before we say we're going to get the troops out of there completely. Did we think through execution? Are you thinking through execution as you're going, as you're making your decisions? Or you just think, decision made, done, let's move on. Every decision has consequences. When you trigger a decision, you start going down a path. Have you thought about what you might encounter on the path? And are you prepared for that? Number 2. Execution of the decision is even more critical, or at least as critical as making the right decision, because you could have the right decision, but if you don't execute it properly, you will land up in a mess the way we are right now. The third thing, which I think is one of the more important ones, and it's very nuanced. Just because it's the right decision does not mean it's the right time. And often, again, we're in such a hurry to execute. We might have made we put all the facts on the table, we made the decision, it's the right decision. We've thought about the execution, it's the right execution. Is the timing right? Again, going back to my favorite example, I don't know why work is coming up so many times today. I have a friend of mine and she wanted to quit her job. And, after a long time, going back and forth for many months, decided, yes, that's the right thing to do. But just because it's the right thing to do, is it the right time? It was November, for those of you who are in the US. Bonuses get paid out in January, but she was so frustrated that all she wanted to do is quit at that moment. She couldn't wait. She called me when she had her resignation letter drafted to send to her boss. And I'm like, what are you doing? Wait for 60 days. Get your bonus. You worked for 11 months. Get the bonus and then get out. If that is what you want to do, little bit of patience. Is the timing right? A lot of times the decision might be right, execution might be thought through, but at time we haven't thought about, is this the right time? Are people around me ready for this decision? A classic case, you've been in a relationship, you want to get out of the relationship. You think, the decision is right, you've thought through it, it's the right thing. Your gut tells you it's exactly the right thing. Is it the right time? Is the other person ready for it? Are you making it easy for them and yourself? Are you making it more difficult? What will it take so that the timing works in the favor of least impact to everybody, including yourself. That timing supports you. And again, let's go back to this decision that President Biden took. He decided he wanted to withdraw the troops. He decided he was going to do it. And he thought 9/11 is a really great date, and it is, for 20 years and great publicity and PR associated with it. But was the timing right? For those of us who've been reading a little bit, you'll see that the Taliban actually takes off, does not fight during winter months. They go back to their families, they go back to the villages wherever they came from, because it's a really cold and the conditions are really tough. So should we have left in the peak of summer when everybody is 100% on the ground fighting? Or should we have waited for winter, which would have given us 6 months, 7 months to see how the decision would play out? Are we thinking, or are we in such a hurry to make the decision, execute the decision, and move on without realizing the consequences? And timing makes such a big difference. A timing can make a decision or break a decision. We've all seen it. When we're in flow with time. And sometimes we're not. Can we think about timing of when the decision needs to happen to? Not to say that you delay it forever, because some of us will procrastinate forever. It's not about that. But don't be in a hurry. Patience is really critical. So I'm just going to pause over there, because these are the 3 things that have been playing on my mind in the last 1 week, to say, okay, did we keep all the facts in place? Did we look at the intelligence, which is all coming? Do we look at all the facts on the table? Do we listen to different people? Are we willing to listen to people who have different points of view than us? It's one of the most important things when you're making a really big decision. Talk to somebody who has a completely different point of view on what you should do. And listen, not to convince, but to understand why they're saying it. There might be something that they might be saying that you have not considered, either in your execution or your timing. You might still make the same decision, but are you willing to listen, and are you willing to change your mind? It's one of the most important things. Or are you stuck? This is my decision. I've thought through it and I'm not going to change my mind. And there's pride behind, once I make my mind up, I make my mind up. Why? Life has changed. You have changed. So 1, are you doing that? So keeping all the facts on the table. Second is, have you thought through execution? What are you going to do? What are worst case scenarios? Have you thought about it realistically? And third, is this the right time? Maybe the right decision, you've thought through everything, but may not be the right time. So I'm just going to pause over there, see what you have to say. Hey Priyanka, I see you. Hi Mom. Hey Cookie Mama. Good to see both of you. Any thoughts, any questions, anything that you want to share? Because I know the last week has been rough for a lot of us as we look at those images, and you wonder where humanity has come to. What can we take away and what can we do? So if there aren't any questions as yet, Priyanka has a question. When pulling the plug, impact on the most vulnerable in that situation must be accounted for. 100% true. And this goes not just for war situations or pulling out of something, even in relationships. If you're pulling out of a relationship, if you're walking away, you have to think of the impact it's going to have on somebody. And are you walking away when they're supported, when they have, their tribe around them? Or are you walking at a time where they're even more isolated than ever before? It is really important to think of this impact on the people who are most vulnerable. It's a really great point, Priyanka. For those of you who don't know, Priyanka has worked with the UN for many, many years. So of course this comes to her very naturally to think about the consequences of all of this. Yeah. So if there isn't anything else, I'm going to leave you with those thoughts. And while it might seem like we can't do much, and there is a truth to it that there isn't much that we can do at a physical level, I promise you, your prayers, your blessings, your intentionality will go at least some way. So don't just put your hands up. Some of your intentionality and your thoughts will definitely help. So do that and keep your eyes and ears open to helping whoever you can, because there's a lot of suffering that's happening there right now. Okay. So on that note, which I know is not an upper, I am going to leave you some thoughts, but know that your prayers and your thoughts will go a long way. So on that positive note, I will leave you, and I'll see you again next week. See you. Bye.